Well, our study today is entitled Worshiping the Sun. This is part one of a two-part study. I remember one time in Sabbath school we had a quote, and I cannot find the quote, but I know I read it. And it said that Martin Luther came to the point in his life where he decided, all of my preaching is going to be on two subjects now. I'm not going to waste my time preaching on anything else except Christ and Antichrist. And so this is kind of that other side, or at least a lot of it. But of course we can't leave Christ out of that either, can we? Well, most of these pictures will not be new to any of you. They're not going to be new to you. We've used them in other presentations, a lot of them. This is a picture of Assyrian or Babylonian sun worship. You see the sun disk there. I want to take just a moment to get you to really focus on that sun disk, because that exact sun disk shows itself in other places, and you'll recognize that exact sun disk in a lot of different places. But that guy over there on the right could be Nebuchadnezzar himself, right? And folks, we've seen pictures like this one before, many times before. I've shown them on this wall. When we look closely at these ancient pagan sun-worshipping pictures, we get a feeling for what we're looking at. And sometimes you will find these same symbols that we see in these ancient pictures, we'll see them in much more modern pictures. And that's a little bit of what our goal is going to be today. There's another very old sun worship picture of the, sun on the wall. And these are Egyptians. What's the central thing in this picture?
Sun.
The sun. Literally, it's in the center, isn't it? And you see the sun rays. It's not hard to interpret what this picture is. Here's another ancient one. This one too, from Babylon. I've shown you this picture many times before. Where it all started. Where did it start?
Babylon.
Babylon, that's right. The Bible says the Tower of Babel, Genesis chapter 11. But we've looked at it before. The word Babel and the word Babylon are the exact same word in the Hebrew, aren't they? And so when it says the Tower of Babel, it really means Babylon. And we've talked about that ancient pagan trinity, the sun god, the moon goddess, and the little star Tammuz, right? You see the crazy 5-point star up there. You see the crescent moon on her head. You see the scepter with the serpent in Tammuz's hand. Lots of things that key us into what's going on there. This, interestingly enough, is the Baal Hadad symbol of the ancient Hittite culture. And you actually find that term in the Bible. Baal-Hadad is mentioned in the Scriptures. The caption for this photo said, notice the peacocks on the side, the face of Apollo in the circle, and the laurel leaf with 13 leaves around it. He said the United Nations uses that symbol for itself, and if you look at the United Nations symbol, it is a circular one like the one in the picture, but it's really interesting. Look on the back of a dollar bill. I think there's 3 different places that you see the leaves, the laurel leaves or whatever. Count them. For some reason, there's always 13. Wonder why that is. Well, numbers are symbolic, aren't they? This one is an Egyptian relief showing the bull's horns with the solar symbol in the middle, a common pagan symbol, and we see it in a lot of the pictures. But sometimes in Egypt it was the bull horns. A little bit later it's a crescent moon. But it still gives the same effect, doesn't it? This one is a little different. This picture is the picture of a drum. Where do you think the drum is from? This is a bronze drum from China. And what do you see on top of it? You see the sun, and you see a lot of the same depictions. Now, I thought that was interesting because we kind of don't usually think too much about China, do we? That's so far removed from us. We don't know a lot about it. We don't think a lot about it. We haven't talked a lot about China in these kind of discussions before. But this is a Chinese drum that was used for worship. And what do you think they might have been worshiping? I don't know any more than you do, but it does have the sun paraphernalia on top, doesn't it? This is a fountain, and it's called Helios in his sun chariot at Versailles, and it's supposed to represent the Sun King of France. The reason I put this photo in there is because we've seen Egypt, we've seen Babylon, we've seen France,
and China.
We've seen China. What is this? What is that showing us?
It's worldwide.
Universal.
It's universal. Very good. Here is a 7th century Surya with solar family, and it's from the land of India. And I had never heard the term Surya before. So I looked it up online, and this is a present-day website that uses the term Thai Pongal, Benefits of Surya Sun Worship. So this was a website promoting the benefits of worshiping the sun. That's 21st century. That's today. Here's one of Mithra, the Iranian sun god, killing the bull. This scene is alluded to in Zoroastrian text, stating that sacrificing the bull and eating his flesh is the only way to defeat the evil Ahriman. Mithra, we've heard of him before, haven't we?
Is that a dragon or is that a leg?
This is a snake.
Yeah.
That down there is a snake. That is a dog. And the reading about this said that and there's reasons for it all. I didn't go into it, but the dog is helping him slay the bull. The snake is helping him slay the bull. This one is from Afghanistan. The medallion of Cybele. Now, we've studied about Cybele before, haven't we? Do you remember Cybele? Was the mother goddess that we studied about. Quite a bit, actually, in some of our studies together. This is Japanese. The Japanese sun goddess Amaterasu emerges out of the cave with her face painted white in a Shinto ritual dance. And I've never even considered the Japanese version of sun worship. But you know, it doesn't surprise you, right? What is their flag?
Rising sun.
It's called the Land of the Rising Sun, isn't it? And some of you are old enough to remember the imperial flag that they had before this. I'm not old enough, but I remember from the history books. And it looked like this. It's even more obvious that it's the sun, right? Well, folks, the point to all of this is to show just how universal this sun worship really is. It goes all the way back to the Tower of Babel, or Babylon, in Genesis chapter 11, and it really does present itself in every culture in the world. As I said before, it goes all the way back to the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11, or actually the Tower of Babylon, I like to say. And it really does present itself in every culture of the world. So therefore it covers time and space, doesn't it? As far as the history of this world is concerned, it basically covers all the time that we've been here and everywhere, so it's pretty much every place, right? And it is alive and well, folks. And I thought I would just share one website with you to illustrate the fact that it is still alive and well in its original pagan form. This is a website, just a screenshot, and it's sun worship, solar gods, sun magic, and rituals. Modern sun worship, solar deities. Modern sun worship, what is it? Now let me look at this. There's the home, welcome home page. Witchcraft, paranormal, beginners, and members only. And of course you see the frames over there. And I apologize, I had to chop this up because it's one of those websites that's done like a patchwork quilt, you know. Everything's floating around. But modern sun worship, what is it? The sun has been worshipped for thousands of years. After all, it is the source of life on our planet. We need its light, heat, and gravitational pull to survive. Our ancestors worshiped the sun and even named certain days and holidays after it. But do modern day people worship the sun? Question mark? Yes! Exclamation mark. There is such a thing as modern sun worship, and it is pretty common. Many neo-pagans, the word neo means new. So many neo-pagans worship the sun by incorporating sun worship rituals, sun magic, and solar deities into their spiritual practice and religions. Many people honor the sun without even knowing it through celebration of the seasons and seasonal holidays. Brother, that's the truth. Right? Many people worship the sun. They said honor the sun, but many people worship the sun without even knowing it through the celebration of the seasons and the seasonal holidays. Learn how you can add more sun worship into your pagan path here. So this is obviously a website promoting this garbage. And I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression. I'm showing you this because I do believe that it makes all these things that we study about in here kind of more pertinent. They kind of come alive a little bit when you realize that, yeah, there actually are people that are still doing this. All right, under the heading Solar Deities. Solar deities are gods and goddesses linked to the sun. These solar deities are found worldwide in nearly every culture. Very true statement. Start by incorporating one or more of these solar deities into modern sun worship by setting up altars for them.
Wow.
How can you enhance your pagan experience? By worshiping the sun, right? Wait a minute. Didn't they just say that many people worship the sun because they do these things and don't realize that they're doing it? Well, how could you be a pagan and you're not already worshiping the sun? Is there any way? No, because it's all entangled so many times over. Well, anyway, provide offerings daily, or at the very least weekly. Pray to the solar deities. Talk to them and honor them on the Sabbats. S-A-B-B-A-T-S. She says more on Sabbats below. Solar deities in ancient Egypt included Ra, Horus, Aten, and Bast. The sun goddess Amaterasu was once worshipped in Japan. Helios is the Greek Titan sun god. The Aztec people worshipped many sun gods, including Quetzalcoatl, Tezcatlipoca,
Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatl,
That's the first one, that's the way it's pronounced.
all right, Nanaotl, and Techiztecatl. Y'all laughed at me. I thought I'd get a standing ovation, but anyway.
We need our Spanish speakers.
Belanos and Granus are ancient Celtic gods, as well as Sulis, the sun goddess. If none of these solar deities suit your preferences, look up more solar deities online or in the Encyclopedia of Spirits. Very interesting, because right there on the webpage you can order the Encyclopedia of Spirits at 54% off for only $16.10. What a deal, huh? Sun worship rituals can be as elaborate or as simple as you make them. Honor your solar deities during sun worship rituals, or simply just the sun. In Edred Thorson's book, Firthark, a handbook of rune magic, Thorson details body positioning, stadha, for each rune. The rune Sawillo is the sun rune. Honor this rune by mimicking it with your physical body. So they're going to tell you what to do and how to do it. Okay?
Is that yoga?
It does include yoga, because I didn't get that part of it, but it was on this very page. There was a yoga section as well. And I think I completely left that out. But a simple runic sun worship ritual performing Sawillo Stadha. Wait to meet the rising sun. Go out and face the sunrise. Squat so that your calves and thighs are in alignment and pressed together. Your buttocks should rest on your heels. So they're giving you the positioning. Rest your arms on the top of the thighs. Keep your torso vertical. Close your eyes and thank the sun for rising and giving us life. Is that not amazing?
Wow.
Now,
Yes, the sun did rise and give us life. Jesus Christ.
hey, listen. I'm not saying that anything in this whole webpage is not true. Because I think generally almost every word on the page is true. Okay? Some of it's meaningless jabber that she's made up, okay? But people do it. And that's the reason I'm reading this to you, is to see that people really do this. Now, the most mystifying and disheartening part of this to me is the thought of how hard that we go out and look for people to share the gospel with. And we buy books, and we hand out books, and we hand out tracts, and we, tapes and videos and all kinds of stuff, and we'll just beg people to study the Bible with us or to come to church, right? And you all know how hard it is. We don't see a great deal of success anywhere. But here's a website that apparently somebody just Google searching online is going to come across this, and they're telling them how to go out and start worshiping the sun. And I'll bet they have more success than we do. All right, a little further down the page. Other sun salutations. An easy way to honor the sun is to greet it with a smile and raise your arms to the sky. This sun worship ritual has been done for hundreds of years, dating back to the ancient Celts and Germanic tribes. Now this is really interesting. Listen, in modern times, certain Christian denominations raise their hands to the Son of God. The Son of God simply replaced the sun god. That's actually a true statement, because the sun worship was there first before Jesus worship was, and the overwhelming majority of the Jesus worship does it in the sun god fashion, which is what we're going to talk about as we go through this study. Certainly, the S-O-N did not replace the S-U-N. Okay? Certainly not. But I'm telling you, if all you've got to go on is all these false religions in the world, including Roman Catholicism, then she's telling the truth. Yoga has a routine called a sun salutation. Look up how to perform this yoga sequence online or go to a yoga class. Sun salutations do just what they say. Salute the sun. Modern sun worship is what you make of it. Tailor it to your needs and preferences. And that's why I believe that they would have more success than we do. Because whatever you feel like doing is okay, and you get credit, and you're going to be blessed, or whatever they say, for having worshiped the sun, right? Well, you know, the true and living God has some conditions.
Praise God.
There's always conditions. On the page, this is the picture right after that paragraph. You know what that is, right? It's called a dream catcher. It's really a spirit catcher, right? You knew that. Doesn't really catch dreams. It's supposed to catch spirits. And then I threw this picture in there. I ran across it a little bit later. One of these type websites was selling these because when you go out in the garden to worship the sun in the morning, it really enhances your experience. So this is something that's current, okay? This is something that's 21st century that's being done even now. What about those sun Sabbaths? I thought you guys would be interested in that. Many neo-pagans and Wiccans follow the wheel of the year. Have you ever heard about the wheel of the year? We talked about that, haven't we? Several times. Which is a celebration of the seasons throughout the year. The major holidays are called Sabbaths and honor the waxing and waning of the sun throughout the year. Solar deities are celebrated on Sabbaths as well. I sure couldn't leave this next information out because it serves my purposes really well. The 8 sun Sabbaths are, and by the way, I've done this extensively and I've shown this many times over in this very room, and I've never seen this term Sabbaths used. But does it make sense to us? You know, the Bible has the weekly Sabbath and it has those festivals or yearly Sabbaths, and that looks like what this is a counterfeit of, right? But look at the 8 sun Sabbaths. The first one is Yule, around December the 21st. What is around December the 21st that we call Yule? It's Christmas.
Winter solstice.
Winter solstice, that's exactly right. Imbolc, around February the 1st. Ostara, around March 21st. Beltane, May 1st. And you will find that December 21st is the winter solstice. March 21st is the vernal equinox, which would be the spring solstice, if you will. That's probably not the correct way to put it. Litha, the summer solstice, around June the 21st. And then you see there's a first of the month in between every one of the 21st of the months. Those 21st of the months are the changing of the quarter of the year, isn't it? It's the changing of the seasons of the year. And then, of course, Mabon around September 21st, which would be when fall starts. And this one doesn't come on the 1st. If you count that up, it ought to come on November 1st, shouldn't it?
Yeah, Halloween.
What happens on November 1st and October 31st?
Halloween.
Halloween, that's right. November the 1st
All Saints.
I can read it to you from a Catholic encyclopedia, but November 1st is the number one most important day on the Catholic liturgical calendar, the most important day of the year, November 1st,
All Saints.
All Saints Day.
I think they pronounce it Sabbat.
Sabbat, okay.
Okay, Sabbat.
You know, I'm going to just about guarantee you that there's a lot of words in this thing today that aren't being pronounced correctly. I promise. And I apologize for that. I'm just ignorant, but I don't want to get educated any better than I am when it comes to that. So, this is their explanation of it. And I think it's better than me standing up here and trying to explain some things. Each Sabbat celebrates the sun in a certain way, either waxing or waning. And you know that's like the moon. It's either getting larger or it's getting smaller. The spring and autumn equinox mark the time of year when the sun's light is equal to the night's darkness. The winter and summer solstice mark the sun at its furthest and closest. Look up each Sabbat and learn them intimately. Modern sun worship should include the Wheel of the Year and Sabbats. On the Beltane Fire Festival, light a bonfire and dance around it wildly.
They do.
On the winter solstice, hang lights and eat oranges in attempts to bring back the sun. Because we know that works. Right?
Has for thousands of years.
Well, I mean, think about how sunny it is in Florida.
That's right.
This was at the bottom of the page and I couldn't help. I had to add it in there too. Easy sun magic for everyone. Moon magic is something that's popular in modern times, but what about sun magic? Sun magic is part of the modern sun worship as it helps harness the energy of the sun to make changes in one's life. And that goes on to try to sell you what is called a sun catcher. Never thought about that before. You know, we've had sun catchers. I think we've made sun catchers with the kids, haven't we?
Well, I was thinking
You know, the
about doing
American
something like
Indian.
that when the kids came down here.
Yeah.
Last time.
I mean,
It was
you know, who knew, right?
American Indians, they incorporated all of that into their worship.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, when you read on these websites, you see a lot about the American Indians, and I kind of skipped over all of that, but I showed you the dream catcher, the spirit catcher, which was where that was at. Well, change gears a little bit. What are you looking at here? This is a relief from an ancient Babylonian site that shows the priest of Dagon with pails of holy water and hyssop bushes to sprinkle faithful worshipers. This ritual is still seen today in the Roman Catholic and Orthodox religions. Notice the symbol of the sun above the priest with wavy rays emanating from it. Now, a lot of these pictures I got from Walter Veith's site, and he's always quick to point out that the wavy sun rays, represent the female deities, and the straight sun rays represent the male deities. So there's both male and female in the sun god. Isn't that interesting? Now, here's a picture I've shown you before. This was an ancient priest of Dagon. And it's the same thing that you're seeing in this picture. It's just a little easier to figure out what you're looking at. There is a man and he's wearing a fish head mitre on his head, and then he's wearing a cape that makes it look like the fish's body with the scales and the tail and all. So the priests of Dagon wore this fish garb. So they were worshiping the fish god. And we've talked about that many times, and we've made the comparison between that and what's going on nowadays before. But did you know that the Dagon worship was also sun worship? How does the fish get into the picture here? Well, it's really quite logical. You see, the ancient sun worship, they believed that there was a door in the east and that there was a door in the west. And the sun would come through the door in the east, out of the ocean, go across the sky, and then he would go into the door in the west and disappear
In the ocean.
into the ocean. And so the priests of Dagon were like the priesthood that was in charge of all of that in the worship. They played some kind of part in that, in their worship. In essence, they were the keepers of the way of the sun god. Well, it's really interesting, and I'm sure you've all seen these kind of pictures before, but this is Pope Benedict, not the present Pope, but just past. Pope Benedict is wearing the modern version of this fish suit. You will also notice the Maltese crosses within a circle that are on his robe. That's these red things, and there's several of them, and that thing goes down his back as well. The Maltese crosses are key symbols that are used in sun worship throughout the ages. And just to illustrate that, look at this picture. This is, again, an Assyrian king is wearing a Maltese cross. And by the way, that looks an awful lot like the stories and the images that we study in the book of Daniel of Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian, right?
Right.
Well, the Assyrian is what the Babylonian Empire was called before they made Babylon the capital. Okay? So, and you'll notice one of our songs in our books, Look for the Waymarks, it says, first the Assyrian kingdom ruled the world, then Medo-Persia's banners were unfurled. F.E. Belden wrote it that way. So the Assyrian kingdom, in essence, you're talking about the Babylonian Empire, aren't you? Says this Assyrian king is wearing a Maltese cross just like the one seen on the Pope's robe. Notice also the sun worship symbols above his hand, and that's these up here. The symbol just above his hand is the 8-spoked pagan solar wheel. John Paul II is wearing the old fish mitre, and I wanted to show this picture because you can see it's really good to see it from a profile like the ancient picture that we saw, because the fish, his mouth is open, right? I mean, it definitely takes on this exact same shape that we're talking about. He's wearing the fish mitre and carrying a staff with both a bent cross and a pine cone, which is widely used pagan fertility symbol. Again, you notice the 4-spoked solar symbol on his mitre, as well as the Maltese crosses that are on his robe. On page 37, this is awesome. On page 37 of Catholic historian Theodore Maynard's The Story of American Catholicism, it says, it has often been charged that Catholicism is overlaid with many pagan incrustations. Catholicism, it must be added, is ready to accept the accusation and even to make it their boast. So they're not running away from this. They're not hiding from this. It's who they are. They're proud of it. This is a confessional in Milano, Italy, in a Roman Catholic church, a confessional. And what do you see there?
All-seeing
Eye
eye.
of the pyramid.
The eye of the pyramid, the all-seeing eye of Osiris is technically who this is.
On your dollar bill.
And it's on the dollar bill, that's right. The eye's positioned a little different, but it's close enough that you can tell what you're looking at, right?
Also Masonic lodge.
Also a Masonic lodge, yes. And, you know, that would be true of almost everything we look at. It's in Freemasonry as well. And, of course, lots and lots of sunbursts, and even the wafer itself You know, we've gone through this so many times I didn't want to repeat it all, but that wafer represents the sun god. And if you go back to the most ancient of times, that's how they worshiped the sun god, was with the wafer. That's a door handle on a Roman Catholic church over in Europe. What do you see?
Look like a fish.
Looks like a fish, doesn't it? Well, folks, what do you see there?
Fish.
See a fish. But folks, neither the fish nor the cross are Christian. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people think this says, I am a Christian. But it's not at all Christian. These pagan symbols were used for centuries and centuries before Jesus ever said, I will make you fishers of men. This is not what Jesus was talking about, folks. Well, the next thing I want to do is share with you a comparison of two churches. The book of Revelation appears to be showing us two churches in chapters 12 and then again in chapters 17 and 18. And there is a marked difference between these two presentations, isn't there? One is a lovely and pure woman, while the other is a harlot, even the mother of harlots, who is adorned with the fake outward adornments of this world. One represents the church that follows the Bible and the Bible alone, but the other is the church of tradition and man-made doctrines. And it is interesting to notice in this whole picture, because I've used this picture for years and years and years. And it is an old picture, and it doesn't blow up well. It's a little pixelated as you're sitting here looking at it today. But folks, with all the time, I never really got this point. Notice, where do the tradition people go to church at? It's a great, big, fancy cathedral, isn't it?
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, that's right. Big, tall steeples, and all of them have got crosses on them, right? All the windows are shaped like arches, which there's a definite meaning of that. There's symbolism in all of that. Where do the people that trust the Bible and the Bible alone, where do they go to church? Now, it's symbolic, folks, because we're in a building today. But where are they? They're at the feet of Jesus. They go to church at Jesus. They go to church in the mountains with Jesus, don't they? Does that say something symbolically to you? I mean, it sure does to me. Well, I want to show you a little different comparison of two churches. And then we'll stop for today. Anybody know where this church is at?
Yep.
Probably everybody knows it's probably the most famous church in the world. More significant than Notre Dame, right?
Does everybody know where that spire came from?
Well, tell us.
It was imported from Egypt.
Really? So it had been used previously. Almost all the pagan stuff is recycled, isn't it, Ron? Like the statues and all that.
100%.
I mean, the statues and everything. They weren't built for the purpose that they're being used now. They were built for other purposes. And we'll hit some of that as we go through. But this is St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican. And it is most assuredly the most famous church in the world. Well, what do you see there? You know, go to the top. You see a cross. Under that, you see a pyramid. Under that, you see a dome. And that's common architecture. We have a lot of that architecture in our own country, don't we?
For the same reason.
Especially in Washington, D.C., and yes, for the same reason. When you look at the building itself, you see the saints that are there in statues going across. And when you look at those statues are not always statues of Peter, Paul, James, and John. They're sometimes Zeus and Apollo and Mercury and and Jupiter, the different the ancient pagan gods. What do you see down here? This big circle.
Sun.
You see first, Ron's already said it, there's an obelisk there. Obelisk is an Egyptian feature. It's like the pyramids. It is a pyramid that's just shaped a little different, but on the top there's a perfect pyramid, isn't there? And it's part of the phallic worship, but it's most assuredly part of the sun worship. And in fact, the most important thing that you see in this picture is right here. You know what that is? That's a shadow of the obelisk, which makes this what we would call a sundial. Except the sundial doesn't tell the time of day.
Tells what season.
It tells what season it is. That's exactly right. So it fits in with all that worship that we've already talked about, that sun worship that we've already talked about. The definition of this, it's an 8-spoked sun wheel. That's what it's termed. You can look it up in the dictionary. That's the technical term for it. And the obelisk is placed in the middle so that it casts a shadow and becomes a kind of sundial. So it has everything to do with sun worship right there at the Vatican.
Morgan, something else that I've noticed, that whatever that's in,
Uh-huh.
the Egyptian one where it showed the bull's horns, that's that shape of
Oh, it fits the same shape.
See that shape?
Very good point. Y'all see what he's talking about? The sun disk would be in here, and those bull's horns went around, and then they shot straight up, didn't they?
Oh, wow.
Very good point.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't thought about that, but very good point. You know, I'm convinced that there's not anything anywhere in this picture that's not symbolic. And it's a pretty crummy picture. If it were clearer, we would probably be able to pick out more things, don't you think?
I didn't catch that. See why we meet together?
Amen. Good point. Very good point. This is a picture of the inside of St. Peter's Basilica.
Is that the altar?
That would be the altar. That would be the throne, Robin. Can you see that right there?
Oh, that's the chair.
That is the chair. That is the throne that is there. And there's somebody standing there in front of it. I guess about to sit down. But what do you see? Well, folks, to make this short, everything you see is a pagan symbol. And it all ties into sun worship. Because I said earlier, you can't be a pagan without worshiping the sun, because it all ties back to the chief deity, which is the sun. Right?
Right.
I mean, it's a hierarchy of gods. There's over 100 gods, but it's a hierarchy of gods, right? Who's the chief god?
Satan.
The sun, and you're right, Satan is the one behind it all. But listen, you don't have to be necessarily looking at the sun to get credit for worshiping Satan. Right? The lowest one of these hundreds of gods is representing Satan, isn't it? But what is the sun? Technically, it's a star. And it's not even close to being the biggest star. Right? It's one of the smaller stars that we know of. And we don't know very much.
That's
But the significance of the sun is its importance to our planet. Right?
That's what we've been deluded with.
And it is what we've been deluded with, no doubt. It's what we've been brainwashed to. Anyway, one more picture of St. Peter's Basilica, just to give you an idea. They made enough headroom for me. And again, everywhere you turn, there's a picture, there's an image, there's a statue. We call them idols, those of us that study the Bible.
We call them icons.
They call them icons. The pictures are icons. Just everything about it And I believe probably everything about it is symbolic. And of course, the most famous thing in this building, right, is that painting up there. This is the most famous church in the world, and it's Roman Catholic, right? So I want to compare that to another church, and it's Protestant. This is a Protestant church. This is St. Paul's Cathedral in London, England. And they gave it a facelift. They totally changed it to look like the Vatican. If you compared the two pictures, you would see that that portion of the church doesn't look anything like it used to. Now it looks like the Vatican. And we just found all kinds of things. These next several pictures are all St. Paul's Cathedral in London, which is an Episcopal Church of England, Anglican, whatever you want to call it, Protestant church. And I know I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but it's a so-called Protestant church, right? They rebuilt it to be a replica of St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican. You know, Walter Veith said, the Bible talks about the image to the beast, and folks, this is not it. But why would the Church of England, supposedly a Protestant church, be making itself look like the Vatican all of a sudden? Isn't that interesting? Well, let me show you. We're going to take a little tour of St. Paul's Cathedral in London. First off, the letters IHS are embroidered on the vestments in St. Paul's Cathedral, but IHS is the ancient abbreviation for three gods: Isis, Horus, and Set. That's right. Who played a prominent role in ancient pagan sun worship religions. In other words, you're talking about Nimrod, Tammuz, and Semiramis by their new Egyptian names, right? That's really what you're talking about there. So they played a very prominent role in the beginnings of pagan sun worship. Most Christians today think that these letters stand for "in His service," but the straight and curved sun rays emanating from the letters give it away as just exactly what it is: another pagan sun worshiping symbol. Do you see the sun rays coming all around it? This is in that same church. This is one of the instruments that they use there, and you see the same thing. Do the floors of our church have a lot to say about the worship and intent of our little church here?
No.
I hope not. I really hope not. What do you see there?
Sunburst.
You have a sunburst within a sunburst. And I had a picture, and I lost it. I couldn't find it. I probably saved it to the wrong place on my computer. I couldn't go back and find it. And then I tried to Google it, and I couldn't go back and find it either. But they had a picture from like the ceiling looking down. And these white and black floors, there's squares, you know, like you have an old diner or something, drugstore. And they work their way out, and there's like a dotted line that goes out, and then there's a bigger circle, and on the bigger circle, there's circles all the way around the bigger circle. And then it goes out another row, and maybe another row. And the caption said that that was to be a solar system. Okay? So you've got the sun in the middle, and you've got all the planets that are rotating in their orbits around the sun. So, did their floors mean something? You better believe it. In fact, I just imagine if we could look around, everything is going to be filled with these symbols and these pagan pictures. But this is the floor in another place, and they bring out the fact that peacocks are very Luciferian. They are used in Luciferian worship. But aside from that, you think, oh, well, that's just pretty. That's peacocks. They're pretty. Nothing behind that. What do you see in the middle of the floor? You've got an equilateral triangle that's in the middle of a circle or maybe two circles, right? And then what's outside the two circles?
Sunshine.
The sun rays again. And I don't know what all this means, but pater means father, and spiritum is fairly obvious, right? I can't read any of the rest of it. Here's another place in the floor. Mosaic tiles.
That looks like sun, moon, and stars.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. You got 12 stars. You have, again, what Robin says, I didn't think about that. The caption didn't mention, but the yellow ring could be the sun, and then the moon is in front of the sun. What the caption said is that this was a snake, and that the snake has his tail so that he makes a perfect circle, and that's in a lot of pagan symbolism as well. Here's another one. Don't know who he's supposed to be or how he fits into the picture, but I know how he's being presented. He's on a cross with sun rays, and some of the sun rays are straight and some of the sun rays are wavy. And again, Walter Veith says that's male and female deities. Well, here's a much better one. What do we call that?
Star of David.
We call that the Star of David. Is it the Star of David?
It's Ishtar's star. It's the
No,
star
it's
of
a double
Ishtar.
it's a double triangle.
It is a double triangle, which would be a double pyramid, right?
Right.
So it's highly symbolic, and I can't even remember the numbers, but you got a triangle here, 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 a triangle. You break it up different ways, you come up with so many triangles. But folks, again, I have to say that neither the cross nor the so-called Star of David is of God. Both are pagan. Both of them existed for centuries before the children of Israel adapted the star, or the Christian church adapted the cross. Folks, the reason Jesus was crucified on a cross was not because the cross was good, it's because the cross was a Roman deity. It was a symbol of worship, and he was crucified on the cross to be that much more of an embarrassment to him. You know, we said it last time, but if they would have killed Jesus with a sword, would we have swords all over our churches?
Probably.
And you know, it sounds even better when I say a shotgun. You know, if they'd have killed him with a shotgun, or if they'd have killed him with a machine gun, would we have machine guns on the walls of our churches? It just shows how silly all of this is. Another mosaic in the floor. You know what that is?
That's a centaur.
That's a centaur, which is some more pagan worship and everything. But this centaur is something that you can see in the newspaper almost any day if you open up and look at your horoscopes. In other words, this is one of the zodiac signs.
Oh, crap.
That one's another zodiac sign, and I suppose that's the only two I found pictures for, but I suppose they've got all 12 of them.
Actually,
They've probably got all 12 of them in the floor. Remember where we're at. St. Paul's Cathedral, Episcopal Church, the Church of England, in London, England. All right, here's a really good one. Same church.
wow, they cover it all.
Up the ceiling of St. Paul's Cathedral. What do you see? The all-seeing eye. What do you see?
Rays,
The rays of the sun. And what do you see?
a little.
The compass and the square, which is, this is
Masonic.
totally Masonic, Freemasons, right? The caption I love these because this is another one from Walter V. But the caption said, "These signs seem to indicate that the Church of England has capitulated and is now part of Freemasonry and therefore Luciferian." You know what Luciferian means?
Is all of this,
It means they worship Lucifer. Lucifer is the god of the Luciferian religion. I go by a United Methodist Church up the road here, and the graveyard is full of Masonic graves. And it just makes me scratch my head and try to figure out, how did we get to the place that all of these so-called Protestant churches, their graveyards sometimes are half full of Masons? It doesn't make any sense. That symbol right there, I know what it represents, and I can't even tell you because we're in church. It's that wicked. Well, I'm going to stop there, and we'll pick this up next week and finish the study, finish the presentation.